Thanks for staying tuned. You're watching Today with John and Helen, live on PlusTvAfrica. Now, this week, we join the rest of the world to raise awareness on the health condition referred to as autism. Solape Azazi will be helping us with vital information on how to raise children suffering from this condition.
All right, and dealing with rejection is our second concern, as you heard earlier on the show today. And we have already in the studio Olufisayo, or Debode, or Fisayo Check. So, for me, what's up? What's happening?
Nothing much. Just I'm glad elections are over, even though there's still like a lot of aftermath of all the wahala that has happened and all the sentiments. And some people, like yesterday, I saw a video of some man on the plane who was misbehaving and saying, "Oh, he wished a certain person had won," and how Nigerians are sitting. But of course, it was bundled out of the plane. I just hope that we are able to keep our emotions in check, because you see, I always tell people that, look, life goes on. Your hopefully you didn't lose a loved one with this election, because and then politicians will always become they're still friends of each other because they have a common goal. So I don't understand how people go and fight with people that, imagine you and I, because we have two different political parties now, we're quarreling. You're the one I'm going to do business with, you're the one I'm going to sit with to anchor this show, you're the one I'm going to relate with. The politician is still relatively very far. So if we're able to if you're going to do anything, go through the legal ways if you feel so pushed about it, but don't throw around religious, tribal sentiments up and about the place, because these people you are throwing those sentiments against are the people you're going to relate with eventually every day. So for me, I'm just thankful that the elections are over.
They're over. And well, still talking about election, last week it was very hilarious, for me. A couple of people came on air and were tearing their international passports. They're no longer proud to be Nigerians. In fact, a few of them said, "This country, I'm no longer in Nigeria."
Well, I saw that happened a few weeks ago. But the challenge with that is that, you see, social media, people like drama and people like to do anything for clout. They not open up passport to look, and then you think that it's passports. You can carry your money and go and renew another passport. Tell them that, do you understand? So all those ones, and then the tearing of your passport or even getting another citizenship does not remove the fact of who you are and where your roots are from.
Exactly.
So I don't know. I just like all that to just clout chasing. It's good to express your anger, but don't be overtly dramatic with it.
All right. I have a few talking points, but time is really far gone. So can we just go right?
Yeah, sure. So every time I hear autism, I'm just very intrigued about it. I feel like it's a very interesting topic that needs like more and more unraveling every day, because even with children, I don't even like to use the word suffer autism. Even with autistic children, I find that many of them are actually very gifted. Well, we have an expert here, so she'll tell us. They just communicate with the world in a very different way. So it would be nice to just talk more about it, especially because tomorrow is World Autism Day. And so we're just trying to raise more awareness about it. And so we have our experts here in the house. So Solape, I hope I did not, your surname, did I kill it?
No, you didn't. It's Solape Azazi.
So let's properly introduce Solape Azazi. So join us to welcome our very first guest, a certified autism specialist, an active member of the Global Autism Team, executive director and founder of the Cradle Lounge Special Needs Initiative, a non-governmental organization set up to advocate and empower caregivers of individuals with autism and other related special needs. An inclusive advocate and autism coach. She's a wife, she's a mother of two adorable boys, one of whom is on the autism spectrum. Solape Azazi. A warm welcome. I didn't think you would. You were Yoruba. Solape Azazi.
There I go. Yeah, Solape is a Yoruba name.
Yes. My conversation with you earlier on, Azazi. Okay, that's Daddy. That's Oga's name. So that's is where we should be. One big Nigeria.
Absolutely.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Yes.
Okay. So autism. What is autism? What does autism mean when we say a child is autistic? Or what does autism mean?
All right. So I will first start by thanking you for that first sentence that you said, when you said, because I think initially when you were introducing World Autism, you said children suffering
Yes.
from autism, and I was cringing where I was seated because I was like, it's not a
No, yeah.
disease, it's not a sickness. Suffering connotes, you know,
Negativity.
negativity. It's not. It's just a different way of life.
Okay.
So, yeah, and so when you corrected it, I was very happy because it's not suffering. It's just you're living with autism. So it's just autism is just a part of who you are. It's not your identity. You can't. I mean, when you say suffering with cancer, it's a different thing. But autism is just the way you're wired, the way you came. So it's not that it's because of my fault, your fault. There's no fault. It's not a mother's fault while she was pregnant. It's not any of that. It's just a differently wired brain. So now you said, what is autism? Autism, the definition is it's a neurodevelopmental disorder. Because earlier you had asked me, you saw disorder, what does that mean?
Yeah.
So it's a neurodevelopmental disorder that affects individuals in the area of how they social interaction, social communication, and then you see some individuals have restrictive or repetitive behavior, and quite recently it was added sensory integration to the things that would show, like the markers that this is a child not suffering. You see, you put it in my mind already. Yeah, this is a child with autism, living with autism. Yes. So.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so let's move on to the early signs. How do we identify that the child is living with
autism? So, quickly, the signs are, like I said, the classic signs: social interaction, social communication, repetitive or restrictive behavior, and some sensory integration. However, how these signs would appear in it, because this is just a generic, and then it would appear in different children, because it's always important to note that when you've seen one child with autism, you've only met one child with autism, it appears differently, and there's no physical marker. Unlike, okay, maybe you say there's other disabilities, there are physical markers to note that, okay, once you see the child, you can immediately say this child has autism. Yeah. There's no physical marker for autism. So that's why you have to do a proper diagnostic testing to be able to know whether this child meets the criteria for an autism diagnosis.
Okay, so at what age? Because that's like so my next question. So what do parents and caregivers look for, and then at what age do any parent begin to say, okay, I'm taking this child for diagnosis for autism? How do I?
Okay, so right from so I said social communication, social interaction, and I'll break it down to you in a layman's term. Social communication, right from age 12 months, the child is already talking back to you, mama, dada, or whatever, those kind of things. A child that is not giving that kind of interaction should, I didn't say has autism, but should be should be like a red flag. You as a parent are checking what's going on. I'm checking the milestones. My child is not meeting these milestones in terms of communication. Okay. At 18 months, the child should have had a particular amount of words. If this child is not producing those words, or is not even able to give you like some words that are quite clear or articulate, you start to wonder what's going on with this child. Is there something I should be worried about? What should I be doing at this point? Social interaction. A baby as of 6 months is trying to, if you put those mobiles above their crib, they're trying to reach for it. Yeah. So they're interacting with their environment. That's social interaction. They're trying to engage. A baby at 6 months, you smile at the baby, should smile back at you, should notice your presence. A child that is not doing that is not giving you that reciprocal, interaction, you should start to check, you tickle a baby, the baby should smile back at you. They're not doing that, then you're starting to wonder what's going on. So those are social interaction. You call a child's name at 12 months, the child should be able to respond back to you. Yeah. The child doesn't respond back to you, then that's an issue. You're wondering, okay, so, and then at 3 months, at 3 years old, you then have to get a proper diagnosis. That's
3 months?
3 years.
Oh,
3 years of age is when you can actually, because even though I've said all of this as markers, you cannot get a definitive diagnosis because the child is still growing. So at age of 3, you then now say, okay, this child has still not met this milestone. This child has still not done this. This child has still not done that. And then at that point, the child will then now be would now have to go through the diagnostic checklist to be sure whether the child qualifies for an autism diagnosis.
Okay. So you said that it's not a disability, it's not an illness.
That's how they're wired.
That's how
No.
they're wired from birth.
So I didn't say it's not a disability. I said it's not a disease.
A disease, okay. Okay.
Yes.
It's not a disease.
Yes.
All right. So what really happens when a child with autism is not attended to at a particular time? Like, is there a specific time that this is identified and dealt with? And if it's not done at that time, what happens to the child subsequently growing up?
So the child needs to get intervention. So once you've realized or you've identified that this child is has met the autism diagnosis criteria, then you start with intervention in the areas that you see that the child needs help. So if you do not give the child those interventions, then how do you expect the child to thrive? The whole idea is that I have identified what next? Intervention. So you give the child the intervention, the tools that the child needs to succeed in life.
What are they?
So, for example, I said social communication. The child is not communicating. There are ways that communication is just not verbal. There are non-verbal communications. There are ways for you to be able to understand the child. And every child has an innate strength and ability in them. All you need to do is to find out what these strengths are and what these abilities are, and how to use these strengths and these abilities to address the areas of need of that child. Yeah.
Okay, so I was wondering, when I was researching, I saw autism spectrum disorder. But most of the time, whenever I hear about autism, I always hear about autism spectrum. It was just until recently I saw the disorder part. Is there what's the
Something
disorder
we're missing out?
Is there something that we're missing out that we should know about that?
No, so autism spectrum disorder is the full definition.
Okay.
And then it's shortened to autism, ASD.
Okay.
And then it's a spectrum. Autism spectrum is a spectrum because it embodies several things. There's the classic autism under the spectrum. There's ADHD. There's several other disorders that are under the umbrella of autism spectrum disorder.
Okay.
Yes. However, classic autism, like what is being World Autism Day, which is the 2nd of April, which is what we're trying to build awareness on. Autism is what we're talking about now, and that's what I've just explained to you.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So you talked about intervention. Is this intervention internal? Like, can the parents just, read about it or should it be something that they should seek for professional help? And are they available, like where parents who have identified, can't reach out for help?
Absolutely. We have a lot of professionals in the field because, yes, it's very good for parents to also train themselves up to understand what it is this intervention is about, because at the end of the day, the professionals only get to spend a particular amount of time with your child.
Yeah.
And so if you do not have the training or the understanding to know what the professionals are doing with your child, then the continuity of that intervention is in question. And the whole essence is that if we're all doing it and we're all doing it right, then we're giving the child a positive outlook for him or her to thrive, So we are building the platform. Now, you said, are there professionals? Yes. So we have speech therapists who would help in the area of speech and communication for the child. We have behavioral therapists who would help with addressing certain behaviors that are associated with social interaction for the child, and even social communication, social play, and all of those things. We have occupational therapists who would help the children. We have several paraprofessionals in the field that are essential to provide intervention to help the child to thrive.
Okay, let's go back to the parents, because it's one thing for your child to be diagnosed autistic, but how does it? Do you know any parents? Like, how does it feel to, Because I know one parent who found out her son is, autistic. At first, she didn't even realize this repetition that you talk about now was just repeating words, and just felt like, oh. And now that you talk about 3 years old, I think it was when he was about 3 years old that she found out, like, she was not doing all the other things his friends. He was not making eye contact, and I remember how heartbroken and hard it was. In fact, at some point, she was actually in denial for a long time before she now, came to put herself together to try and find, a specialist to help her with it. So walk us through the emotion of the parents that you have seen and worked with, or autistic children. How do they handle it?
So I would start by saying I'm a parent also, so I can share my experience. Okay. Although everybody's experience is different, yeah. But one thing that we all have in common from all of the parents that we've spoken with is that we all go through that process of denial, grief. The why me? Because your child is born. Like I said, there's no physical marker. So you have a very beautiful, healthy, prayed for child, and then all of a sudden you're noticing certain things that don't just meet up. As a parent, you start to get worried. You start to think, what am I not doing well? What am I not, And then when you finally get the diagnosis, you start to internalize certain things, like maybe I should have, or maybe I shouldn't have. So you start to blame. You start the blame game. You start the stigma. I don't want to bring my child out. I don't want them to see me in this light. I don't want them. So a lot of things, and until you go through all of that process to acceptance. Because remember, when you go on the plane, they say you have to fasten your own seatbelt before you help them. So if you are not in the state, in that just right state
of mind.
That just right state is that state that, that mental capacity that, okay, I'm ready to take on an extra. And when you get there is when you can then now start to give back to your child, be present, and help that child to get well. So, like I said.
So what's the difference between, I hear this Asperger disorder and autism. What's the difference between those two? So
Asperger's and autism are under the autism spectrum disorder.
Okay.
So you have that. And with autism, you have social interaction, social communication, repetitive or restrictive behavior, and now sensory integration. With Asperger's, you still have, you might not have social communication. The child might be talking properly, but you would have repetitive behavior and you would have social interaction. So that's the area where you say, oh, this child is quirky. There's something going on. I can't really pinpoint it, but yeah.
Okay, so are there, because the day is 2nd of April every year, all over the world there's awareness and there's support groups here and there to try and raise and get more people to be aware of this. I don't want to use the word she doesn't like. Okay. Or the word that isn't right, not what you don't like, but what isn't right.
About autism.
Yes, about autism. So I'm asking, in terms of awareness, creating awareness, would you say it's sufficient, or do we leave it until April?
I believe that we're doing a lot to promote awareness in the areas of autism. A lot of this awareness is built up on parents. A lot of the parents and caregivers are pushing a lot of this awareness. And one of the awareness is is one of the things that we have coming up on Sunday, which is World Autism Day, 2nd. So Pure Souls have come together to, I think this is the 3rd year they're going to do it, and they're showcasing artists on the spectrum, children with autism spectrum disability, disorder, diagnosis. They come, they're beautiful paintings, and this year they've tagged it as embracing art through the lens of a differently abled child. So they organizations like Pure Souls and so many organizations like that come out every 2nd of April to push the awareness, to push the gender of awareness. But a lot of times you find out that it is mainly the parents that are out there pushing this, inclusion, pushing this advocacy, awareness. Yeah.
Who else would you like to get involved?
Oh, the government.
Okay. And so is the Nigerian government doing enough to support autism in Nigeria?
I do not even know that there's a Nigerian Government Autism Association to begin with.
Okay.
So I don't know how much they're doing in that area.
I think it's going to eventually, come from you because, like the mental health bill, it was most of the private sector and, of course, a lot of the psychologists that had to bring, because sometimes those things may not come from the top to the bottom. I feel like it may come from the bottom. So with the awareness you're creating, I assume there's an association already. So maybe you guys will now have to now move it up and, create a force, maybe a bill, and work towards getting government participation in it. Because before, autism was not so, the awareness about autism was not so, popular. Many people know about Down syndrome because it has physical markers, because most of the, special needs are the ones that have physical markers like cerebral palsy and all of that. So with autism, it might just need more push, not just awareness to parents and the society, but even further up to the government to begin to see how they can. So that push might just come from you.
Absolutely, and we would work tirelessly to make sure that we get our voices, the voices of our children, heard on that level.
Okay.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
Okay, so I want to talk about this exhibition.
Yes.
Another, I don't say whether it's an assumption, and that's why you're here to clear it if it's an assumption, is that sometimes, maybe I'll speak for myself and say, I assume that many autistic children are very artistic and creative and even almost borderline like geniuses. Not even what some are geniuses at all, but not in the genius of how we maybe say creative geniuses or artistic geniuses. Is this true?
Yes, well, it's true. A lot of the children on the spectrum show a lot of creativity in this area. But like I said from the beginning, you've seen one child with autism. You've only seen one child with autism because they all, the diagnoses affect all of them differently. It shows differently in each person. However, that being said, a lot of all these children on the spectrum are visual learners. They are visually skilled. And so they can see things, they can see more than you can see. And I talked about repetitive and restrictive behavior, for example. They get a thing that they like, and then they get at it, and they repeat it over and over till they perfect it. And so that's why you see those beautiful things. And then because they can focus, they're hyper-focused on something beautiful. You need to come see the artwork tomorrow. I don't know. It's beautiful. You see some paintings and you see, and then the thing is that we have from 9-year-old to 18-year-old representing fantastic things. Yeah.
I'm looking at you. Can we ask where this is happening?
Oh, she told me it's happening here in Lagos. It's a terra culture.
Okay.
So I'm planning to be there.
I'm asking you, so you don't send the bill to me.
Okay.
No.
It's really been nice having this conversation with you. Well, is there something we have left out? Something really, important for the viewers to get to hear and know about autism?
Yes. So I would say, speaking from a mother who got a diagnosis, it can be very hard to get the diagnosis and then wonder, where do I turn to, and think if this is the end of the world. Absolutely not. It's not the end of the world. You can cry, you can do all of that, but I would advise you to just take a deep breath and just calm down. It's not the end of the world. However, if you put all that you think you can put into it, your child will thrive.
Good.
There's hope at the end of the tunnel. So just keep going.
Thank you again. While I was reading for this, one of the quotes on autism, which really spoke volumes to me, is it says, every word or every sound uttered by an autistic person is important communication. And talking to you from the beginning up till this point, communication has. So we need to really be observant. That's the only way we can find out what's going on. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Solape, for sharing your experience, for sharing your wealth of knowledge and for giving of yourself this morning. I pray for you too that the awareness will grow and that your child will continue to improve, and the work that you're doing also gets recognized. Thank you very much.
And I love to your boy, and the two of them specifically. All right, thank you for coming once again. Our first guest there, Solape Azazi, helping with raising children who are dealing with autism. When we return from this very short break, we shall take on Rejection Fisayo Odebody. Founder Fisayo Czech will be navigating this terrain with us. You are on to Today with John and Helen live, and more after the break. Please stay with us.